look, please tell me he's okay, please.
There's that comment at the end when she goes, why can't I look? At least tell me he's okay. He's going to be okay. Yeah, he's going to be fine. Don't worry. Oh, that is just terrible. I'm Navin Leanage. I'm a doctor in A&E. I'm specialising in emergency medicine. So today I'll be reacting to and giving my expert opinion on Scene from Until Dawn. That goes well beyond major trauma because I would probably expect die on impact, on their first impact, because they've fallen quite a long way. That is blunt injury to pretty much every part of their entire body. They'd be incredibly lucky to survive that, incredibly lucky. The injuries that they would have sustained, like I say, to the entire body. So we're looking at head, through the whole of the spine, abdominal and chest. I mean, taking note of that person who lands on that rock before they then tumble even further, probably have imagined that if they hadn't died on impact, that would have caused them to become unconscious and they would never have woken up from that. They would have died by the time they hit right at the bottom. Fall from 6 feet or more is considered enough mechanism to cause major trauma. On top of that, you've got to consider with them, they've hit a lot of things on the way down. They've also fallen to me, that looks well beyond 6 feet. Because that was a nasty fall. Tank top in the cold. Oh, as you do, just get up from that sort of fall. Okay. I've got to be honest, I have a lot of problems with this scene. So when he first trips and falls, or slips and falls in this stream, let's just assume he doesn't injure his hip or his knee. I think he would have done something really quite painful to his shoulder. It wouldn't really surprise me if he's broken his collarbone, which is, we call it the clavicle. But let's say that he didn't, and he's just really bruised his shoulder. He got up really quickly, and then he didn't even have to shake it off. He just picked up this lantern and then carried on going. And he has no scratches on him whatsoever. He's either the luckiest guy in the world or the most unlucky guy in the world. He takes quite a few direct collisions with his head. And he then injures his right shoulder quite a lot. And I think at one point he jumps into a rock and he grabs hold of the ledge with his right arm, but he's directly taken an impact to his right chest. And I wouldn't be surprised if he'd broken a couple of ribs from doing that. So that'd be really painful. To be able to hold on and sustain that sort of injury, that'd be really painful. And he's doing this one-handed, plus he's also had these other injuries from this fall earlier. Okay, let's just put that to one side and assume that he's somehow got away with this. He's then fallen a really long distance again, and he's fallen flat onto his back. And then he's got up, and again, he's got no bruises, no cuts, no bleeding point, nothing. But that fall directly onto his back, I would expect that to have broken the majority of whatever bones he hasn't broken at this point. I would have expected that to break quite a lot of bones. I mean, that guy he's made of something else to be able to stand up and carry on running and carry on walking. Which is very Saw-esque.
No, Dad, don't look at you.
Why
Don't look.
can't I look? Please tell me he's okay, please.
There's that comment at the end when she goes, why can't I look? At least tell me he's okay. It's like, what? She's probably seen that Saw coming towards the two of them, and it's obviously not gone to her. So what was she expecting? He's going to be okay. Yeah, he's going to be fine. Don't worry. That's a horrific way to die, because you're seeing your reckoning coming towards you. So the anticipation of pain is going to be massive. I think what's lucky with him is that saw was moving relatively fast, so cut through him quickly. So at least, yes, he would have experienced quite a lot of pain, a lot of fear. That's cut through his entire abdomen. So all his organs have been cut through. So at that level, certainly the intestines have been cut through. His kidneys probably would have been cut through. And depending on exactly where it was, his liver and his pancreas, or part of his liver and his pancreas probably would have been cut through. And there's a major blood vessel that goes through your abdomen that comes from your heart called the aorta. That is the main blood vessel that carries blood from your heart around the body. And it goes through the thorax, the chest, and it goes down the abdomen. So it's called the abdominal aorta. And so that saw would have clean cut through that. All his blood would have gushed out. He wouldn't have lived very long. I don't know exactly how long, but I would probably say that the game's depiction of how long he survived for is probably quite accurate. And even if he actually died maybe a couple of seconds after he passed out, I would at least expect him to die within seconds like he did. But he would have passed out first and then very, very shortly died afterwards. Yeah, so I mean, I kind of like that scene, not in a like, oh yeah, that was really, you know what I mean. that scene was pretty. So he's quite unlucky again. Like, you know, he survived all these falls and everything, and it's a bear trap that got his fingers. By the looks of it, the bear trap didn't sever his fingers. That would have been really painful. Judging by his reaction, his nerves weren't severed either, which is understandable. But because it's not severed his fingers off, he's effectively going to have to pry open the bear trap wide enough to be able to get his now probably the distal parts of his fingers are probably just hanging there. I doubt he's got a huge amount of control. The majority of the muscles that control your hand are actually in your forearm, and especially with your fingers, the tendons from your forearms then continue up along the fingers and they attach along the way of the fingers. This is why a lot of people, you know, when you bend your fingers, you start bending all of them because it's all from the forearm. So him trying to saw it off, that would have been really painful. So I think his reaction was pretty spot on. Conveniently, there was something that he could then wrap around his fingers nearby. He wouldn't bleed to death from an injury like that. It would just continuously, slowly bleed. You do get an arterial supply. So arteries carry blood away from the heart under higher pressure, but by the time it's got to the fingers, they're slightly lower pressure. So as long as he ties that relatively tightly, he would be okay. His biggest problem, if he survives this ordeal, I don't know if he survives at the end of the game, he's going to have issues with infection. Oh, that is just terrible. Sorry, this is really uncomfortable laughter. Okay, the thing that helps this scene with the realism is that whatever this monster is, it's got really long thumbnails which would have penetrated through her eyeballs, and they looked long enough to be able to go through the back of the orbital socket and through those bones. Now there are gaps in those bones which makes them a bit more structurally weak, so they would have been able, that probably would have been able to penetrate it, and it would have gone directly into her brain. She's not really recovering from that. She's definitely 100% blind from that. I think that's, you don't need a doctor to tell you that, but I would expect those nails to go into the brain. It's really difficult to say which part of the brain, and so the only way of knowing, or the only way for me to know that really is going to be from a CT scan, but a penetrating injury to the brain is very difficult to survive that. That's a terrible way to go. I mean, whoever thought that going into a creepy cave, is going to have a good outcome anyway? I mean, the main thing with that one is the amount of force that has to go through your skull to actually compress it. I don't know how much, but the skull's quite strong. So the skull made up of 22 bones, 14 in your face, and then the others are the actual, what we call the cranium, this part of your bone. There are structural weak points. So a lot of people talk about the temples. That is, I think it's 4 bones coming together, and we call it the terion, and it is a structurally weak point. And seeing as that this monster was squeezing from the sides, that would probably be the first bit to break. Whatever this is clearly very strong. There will be quite a lot of blood, and it will be mixed in with that brain that would have just been completely mushed, and the brain is not a tough structure, so the amount of force that this thing is applying on the head, I would expect the brain to be easily destroyed from that. But I think there's probably a bit more blood there in that image than I would expect, but it would all be mixed together.
Not until dawn.
So the injuries that we saw, there were some I was expecting to be a lot worse. For example, that guy who was slightly, for him to be able to stand up at the end without a scratch on him, that was incredibly unrealistic. That was probably the most unrealistic scene out of all the ones that I looked at. Most of those scenes, or almost, in fact, all of them, were all major traumas, most of them unsurvivable. And if they did survive, their hypothermia would have killed them, because it looks like they're in a very remote area. These guys were set up to fail. Let's put it that way.
For more expert reacts, make sure to check out our video with an accent coach reacting to Obi-Wan Kenobi, or a paleontologist reacting to Jurassic World dinosaurs.